Bow down before my psycho power.
Michael Murray put out this tweet randomly. It says, I blocked so many people. The man himself, Hideo Kojima, has finally unblocked me. We all know Michael Murray has been blocking a lot of people, right? Some people definitely deserve to be blocked, you know. We know that they've had a very rough back and forth with the player base for a very long time. But basically what ended up happening was Tekken 8 released, everyone learned the game and realized that it wasn't good. Everyone then rejected it. And the developers didn't accept that rejection because they were reaching success. Their game was selling faster than Tekken 7. And I think it was doing that because of Tekken 7. I don't think Tekken 8 was selling faster than Tekken 7 because Tekken 8 was good. I think it was selling faster than Tekken 7 because Tekken 7 was so great. It was building off of the momentum. Those early sales made them believe that their game was really good and that they can do no wrong. So they continued to not listen to players and continue with this terrible balancing philosophy, but also they made a lot of bad business decisions along the way. And they got so much hate for it. So much hate. Honestly, if we go and look at the tweet from Harada, where Harada said that the hate is justified, right? And they said this before, right? That's why they apologized. That's why they promised to do better. And I think they are doing better, but it's just not as much as people want them to do. The players hate them now. Think about this. The full 180 that happened, Harada, Michael Murray, all of the Tekken team were some of the most respected developers. They were used as an example of what other devs should be. You know, their communication with the team, with the players, their supporting of tournaments, supporting of all of the, what they did was really great, bro. But now that has all been undermined by their use of Twitter and the bad bouncing of the game. I honestly don't think they would be as hated if they didn't use Twitter. And it seems like they're realizing that, because we already had Harada say that he's probably going to shut down his Twitter account and they're just going to set up a Discord and communicate that way. They're realizing that them on Twitter is creating a lot of problems. But as you can see here, going back to this original tweet about Michael Murray, someone says, "Hey Michael, would you do more documentaries on characters like Fahkumram? It was very interesting to learn more about him, and his design made me interested in him." Michael Murray says, "Unfortunately, some people complained so much that the team behind it didn't see the value in doing it anymore." So this is a very powerful tweet, because you remember that Bandai Namco showcase, right? Where they showed off Fahkumram, and Michael Murray was driving in the car. They were talking about the tattoos. They were talking about the design and whatnot. People memed on that very harshly. Now, I do agree that they probably could have made it a little bit better with putting all of the gameplay they gave to IGN. They could have put some of that stuff in their own production and people would have loved it. The fact that we walked away, we sat through like 2 hours of that, right? The fact that we walked away from that with only like 2 small gameplay clips is where they went wrong. But even with that being said, they got a lot of hate for it, and now they're basically saying we're not doing it anymore. I think we all would agree them doing something like that for Armor King would be awesome. Them doing something like that for Miguel or Julia or Bob or whatever character you guys like, it would be awesome. But this is what happens when the players go too far in their backlash. Now, I 100% think that Tekken 8 is not a good game currently. It's getting better. Sometimes, depending on what character you're fighting, it's a fun game. But in its current state, when you look at the entirety of it, it's not fun. And to say that and critique the game for that is 100% fair. But a lot of players are crossing a line and they're just attacking the developers, making threats. They're just going too far. And this is the consequences of those players who are doing that. All of those tweets about lore and the history of Tekken and characters, I know people would say, I don't care about that. I don't care about any of that stuff because the game sucks. And I agree. But my thing is that the game is getting better. And when the game gets better, we're still going to have the developers not wanting to communicate. So that's the thing, is like acting like a rampaging baby and destroying everything is going to have a long lasting consequence for a temporary problem. So I think this is something that players who are attacking the developers should think about. But Zumio, I like Zumio. Zumio says, "It's funny how a decision like this can be made so quickly, but things the community complain about 24/7 takes months to be fixed." What Zumio is saying is true here. Cheaters, for example, huge cheating problem plaguing the whole entire game, and the developers are doing nothing about it. I don't care if the devs do not do or do not talk to us. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who feel that way. I think I'm one of the few who cares. This person says, I know you guys read some replies for feedback, so I hope my feedback is received well. I don't think that it was a documentary that we didn't appreciate. Instead, it was the fact that we already seen a lot of the information presented. It would have been awesome to see what character Fahkumram was initially before you guys changed him to who we have today. That is something the documentary worthy, and it would be awesome to answer questions for if he's a definitive replacement for Bruce. The showcase for Fahkumram gave us less than an overview from IGN, which made it underwhelming. If you compare that presentation to the presentation they did in Tekken 7, it's a night and day difference. This is a 12-minute video that was done in Tekken 7 when Leroy and Fahkumram were about to release. And not only did these guys show a lot of new gameplay, they showed different concepts of what they wanted the character to look like. They showed so much. Like, look at this for Leroy Smith. That's fire, right? All of the different concepts that they were going to go with. And they did this, and they even showed mocap, right? They kind of did this in the dev diary or in the documentary that they showed us. But this one, they showed more. There was a point in time where I put all of these clips together, and I think I uploaded that just to see like the mocap in its entirety. But it was like a minute's worth of footage, like just under a minute. And the fact that we didn't even walk away with that, a minute worth of mocap this time around. And I'm not saying you have to do a direct comparison between Tekken 7 and Tekken 8 where, okay, this is 1 minute, so you need to make sure you do a minute there. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like this dev diary was created with so much passion and so much was put into it. Like sitting down and watching this, first off, it didn't take 2 hours. It was only 12 minutes. It's a YouTube video. But then two, all of the information that you learned here was really something amazing. This is what the developers should understand, is that this is what the players were expecting. This is what we wanted. It's that if Michael Murray and the community had more self-control, this could have been great. Yeah. But also, I do get it too. The players are just sick of it. Put yourself in a position of the players. You seen the highest highs of what this game could be. And then little by little, you seen it start to go down a wrong path, a bad path. It goes left, it goes left, it goes left. You're trying to give some criticism here and there. You're trying to give some feedback here and there to steer the ship back on the right course. The developers aren't listening though. They're telling you that you're wrong. They're ignoring you. And then a new game releases. They continue to do the same thing. No, you guys are wrong. Look at the sales. Only the pros don't like the game. Everyone else loves it. You guys don't know what you're talking about. Is then once they finally really break the game beyond repair, then they want to apologize and then they want to say they could do better. So I get why the players are so angry. And I do think that the situation basically goes back to the players or the devs. The devs are ultra responsible because it was them who threw the first stone. They were the ones who decided to release pay to win DLC, to charge for frame data, to start changing the properties of moves and how they existed for the previous 30 years. Randomly, in a generic normal update, made the hell sweep track both directions without any explanation. I remember at the time I was watching the Main Man video. Main Man was saying, why did they do this? Are they going to explain? No, they're just going to change it back and act like it never happened. And I'm not talking about explaining like a rude tweet, because that's how we got the wide side step when you could just block. That was Michael Murray, who's not a part of the balancing team, explaining balance. That's when the Katsu should have been there and be like, hey, we did this for this reason. We did this because of that. And I mean, if you think about it, we're still dealing with some of those issues now in Tekken 8. Of course, everyone hated how they were trying to put chip damage on throw breaks. But why did they... What I was saying at the start is, why did they feel the need to do that? If they explained those decisions, maybe we would understand so much more about this game. Jin had that one kick that was launch punchable. Now it's not launch punchable anymore. That move also was that way for a very long time. Why did they feel the need to change that? They're changing a lot of core properties with no explanation. An example of where they did do this is the key charge change. They took off the counter hit properties and they gave it bonus damage. Harada explained, basically, long story short, he said this should have been done a long time ago. And I still disagree with that. I think the key charge work back then was so much better and it's so much more unique. And now people don't really even do it anymore. It's a dead mechanic now. But at least they explained why they felt that was necessary. They should do that that for all the other major changes that they're making. Not minor changes, but major changes, right? Because we seem to always end up in a situation where the developers are trying to change some core mechanic of a character or the game with no explanation. I think that would help us understand their philosophy as a whole. Because also so the Tekken summer updates that they did, they barely said or showed anything there. But that being their first, Tekken talk since the season 2 dropped in the Backlash, that is when they should have really laid out their roadmap, their plan, their ideas, and they said nothing. And we still know nothing about the direction of the game. Think about that. We just had a Tekken talk and we know nothing about the direction of the game. And that's why people are losing interest and they don't believe, they don't have faith, they don't trust, because the developers gave them nothing to trust, to look forward to. Yes, Fahkumram isn't super overpowered like Anna. Yes, this update is good, but it's not enough. In an era where players are looking for a reason to hope, the developers aren't giving them that. It's just silence. It's silence after a long campaign of terrible decisions. But see, here's the thing. Their PR team is telling them to do this. Their PR team is ultra concerned about Backlash. They're working overtime to try to make sure there's no PR disasters. And they're probably telling the developers to stay silent. But in doing so, they're creating more issues, because now isn't a time for silence. Now is a time for explaining the future, especially with that Tekken summer updates. What's the main takeaway here? I think the main takeaway is that this didn't need to happen. They had a flawed vision followed by arrogance. Yeah, cocky devs with a bad vision.